Welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Line with Greg Heym. Today is Monday, June 3rd, and we're happy to be doing our 28th episode. And we have Hannah here today. How are you today, Hannah?
I'm doing well.
Have we gotten over the Rangers yet? Or
No.
It's going to take a little... if you could just start the conference finals next year, it wouldn't be so bad. But
I'm going to need like another 3 business days to recover from that.
God, the Yankees are in first place. I could just move on to that now before I start to get my heart broken by the Jets again. And we have Ray and Lena here as always. Don't clap for that, Ray. It's been a lifelong struggle to not cry every time the Jets disappoint me. So we're just going to dig in an effort to be a little more concise, a little more brief, and a little more tolerable. We're going to try to shorten these up a bit, so hopefully you stay with us, even though the news may not be the most interesting or happy news, but we're going to make it that way. So what do we got first?
Yes, the Fed's favorite measure of inflation is up 2.8% from a year ago. And
you loyal listeners and viewers know the Fed's favorite measure of inflation is something called the Core Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index. Say that fast a couple of times, or even once it's hard. Or Core PCE to her friends or his friends, whichever you want to use. The Consumer Price Index gets all the love. We make jokes about the PI brothers. I think part of that is because it comes out first, but the Fed prefers Core PCE because it comes from expenditures data. It's looking at the total amount people are spending and what the prices are, and that makes a lot more sense because people will substitute goods. If you have the Crossing the Line with Greg Heym mug and you want to buy another one, that may be more expensive than, Vince's mug or somebody else's mug. So you go buy another mug. Sorry, my fellow co-host. I can't use the chicken and steak thing.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
So the Core PCE actually accounts for the change in people's spending habits, and it is looking at a more complete picture. And it also trumps retail sales because retail sales is, again, a smaller survey. So this is a more complete picture of spending. So we'll get to that in a second. So Core PCE up 0.2% in April and 2.8%, as Hannah said, over the past year. Those are kind of in line with what everybody expected. So there was no panic. In fact, this came out on Friday. The Dow had its best day of the year on Friday. So people shrugged this off pretty quickly because it's not really the best or the worst report we could get. What's the downside of it? Well, we'll go into that now. The Fed's target for this number is 3%. So we're still running almost 1% above that. But it's not going up. So I guess that's the lemonade out of the lemons. I don't know. Will we ever get to the Fed's 2% rate? Is the 2% rate unattainable? Like me expecting the Rangers to win another Stanley Cup in my lifetime. It just may be unattainable.
We can manifest it happening.
Well, if we wish hard enough.
Yeah.
We didn't get that
We can
pony
really cross our fingers
when we were kids. So we'll just look. The Fed's target rate is sort of a moving, generalized number. They don't have to get it at or below 2% before they consider rate cuts. It's a more dynamic approach. That said, it's still too high for the Fed to even contemplate rate cuts. Their favorite inflation subset of all this, because you have the headline number, you have the core, which strips out food and energy prices because they're very volatile, and then we have super core inflation. We've talked about this a couple of times. I try not to bring up more levels of inflation than I have to. But super core focuses on services only. So it's stripping out, the food and energy prices and services and housing. Most notably, housing is the biggest driver of inflation right now.
Right.
Supercore inflation is actually up 3.4% over the past year. And, hasn't budged much in the last 6 months. So that's the concerning part. The real, when they drill down, the real thing they're most concerned about is super core number. And again, they strip out housing because they really think that the housing, elevated housing prices are temporary and will come down in time. And they don't worry as much about that. But, it's concerning that the number they're most focused on is the highest measure of inflation. So that's something to be concerned about. They're going to continue to be data dependent. They're still trying to manage expectations. The markets are still pushing hard for rate cuts, expecting rate cuts some point later this year. We'll see. Some of the other highlights from the report, personal expenditures, so the money people are spending or consumer spending, was up 2.6% from a year ago. And when we talk about retail sales, we always point out they're not adjusted for inflation. Well, this is. So real spending is up 2.6%. That's a pretty decent increase considering, and this is point number 2, disposable personal income, which basically means the money you have left over after taxes, was up just 1% over the past year. That was the lowest annual increase since the end of 2022. But it just goes to show you the resiliency of the consumer, or the tricky ways they keep finding new methods to spend money. Buy now, pay later is big now. 25% of people are using that now.
Afterpay.
It's, because those aren't loans now, too. People have debt already. We talk about the credit card debt all the time. So, that it's an okay inflation report. It's not going to change anybody's mind about anything right now. We'll just start the next cycle, and now the May data will start coming out pretty soon. So we'll see where it goes from there. All right, so that was the latest on inflation.
Yes.
This story, not so
Yeah, let's
happy
get into
us.
pending home sales. They're down 7.7 in April.
Just in April. So
Yeah.
pending home sales are measured by the National Association of Realtors. We're talking about existing homes here. It's based on when contracts are signed. So think about it basically as a contract sign report, which is sort of a really good real-time indicator. Closings lag several months. I go look at a house, I negotiate, I sign a contract, I close a couple months later maybe. This is what's happening right now. This decline was the steepest in 3 years. So that's concerning. The index that they use to measure this is now at its lowest level since April of 2020. And of course, that's right at the beginning of the pandemic. Economists were looking for the number to be unchanged, so they were really wrong on this, and this is really much worse than expected. Why such a big decline in activity? Well, your mortgage rates are always a good place to start. And I hate to say they actually ticked after 3 weeks of decline. They actually ticked back up over 7%. But if you think about it, a lot of the April deals, people were getting their mortgages at the beginning of the year, and that was a period where rates started to rise again. We saw a decline at the end of 2023, and then as data started to come in hotter than expected, rates ticked up. So that's problem one. And problem two is the high prices, of course. So you have a double whammy on affordability. Again, the higher prices are really a function of inventory. But one of the things that we found out is that the number of homes for sale is up 30% year over year. And that's not leading to an increase in contracts, and it's not bringing prices down yet. So it goes to show you that how ridiculously low inventory was a year ago and how low it remains. And those high mortgage rates and prices are really just going to keep buyers away. An idea of the price increase in April, and this is based on closing data, the median price for an existing home sale was $407,600. I know a lot of people going, I wish I could find a house for $407,600. That was the highest price since June of 2023. And just this year, prices are up 5%. So that sounds all negative, but don't worry. The chief economist of NAR was optimistic about the future, and he said, but the Federal Reserve's anticipated rate cut later this year should lead to better conditions with improved affordability and more supply. as you know, if you listen or watch the show regularly, I'm not sold on rate cuts this year. I don't expect them to happen. It'd be nice if they could, but we have to be responsible about this. And, with prices, that how are they going to come down when even after inventory jumps 30%, they're still going up? It's a little frustrating, but if you go in most parts of the country right now, inventory is very low. So how are rates going to get lower? It has nothing to do with what the Fed does. We keep saying this all the time. The Fed does not cut mortgage rates. We need to see economic growth slowing. We need to see inflation coming down. Inflation's kind of been stuck in neutral for a while. It's spinning the tires in the mud.
Yeah.
Like in My Cousin Vinny, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get anywhere.
Good movie.
It's a great movie. So it's one of my mom's favorite. Hi, Mom. If she's still watching at this point. So what do we know about this? So we talk about inflation. It's come down significantly the last 2 years, but we haven't made a lot of progress the last few months. Economic growth is slowing. GDP was originally reported growing 1.6% in the first quarter. That number last week was revised down slightly to 1.3%. So, okay, that's a little cooling. That's not the worst thing. You don't want to root for a recession, but we do need the economy to cool down a little bit. Hiring in April was down sharply, less than expected. We're going to get the May number on Friday. We could all be very happy or very frustrated if it bounces back up again, but the labor market still has a lot of signs that it is very hot. The unemployment rate is still below 4%. There are still well over 8 million available jobs out there, and claims for unemployment are low. So if you think it's bad here, it could be worse. I was reading this morning. Inflation, the annual rate of inflation here, we talk about it being about 2.8%.
Right.
In Turkey, the annual rate of inflation just hit 75%.
Okay, that's jarring.
Imagine if we were doing the show there, what I might have to say about whoever's in charge with their monetary policy. That would, my head would probably explode.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be here. I think he'd probably
Education
pass away.
costs have doubled in the last year.
Wow.
Housing costs are up over 90% in Turkey. So my first job ever, I worked for a guy who was from Turkey. So it made me think of him, and we should be grateful that our inflation
75%?
year over year.
Wow.
Imagine if it's 75% in 1 month. That would really, you wouldn't have enough money to buy anything. People always say, why don't we just keep the money supply really low and force low interest rates? Because you get 75%. That if you're just going to flood the money, more money chasing not enough goods is the recipe for inflation. You put it in the oven at 350, it comes out, and you get inflation. You put it in the microwave, you get runaway inflation. Was that funny? No.
No, it was.
Okay.
It was.
Well, laugh a little bit more. Ray's the only one who ever laughs loud enough. I worry about him sometimes. No, he's solid. All right, so I think that's it. I think we've covered everything we want to do. Hopefully you enjoy the shorter format. Remember, you can always speed up the listening volume on podcasts, so I might sound funnier that way. The news may not sound as bad if it sounds like Mickey Mouse is telling you.
Not so dismal. Right.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But thanks to Hannah and Ray and Lena. And again, thanks for all the support.
Yes.
And be sure to tune into all the great shows on the More Network. Have a great week, everybody.